What's up guys, Galapagos Jake here. So for those of you who have watched my video about the workshop setup, you may have noticed there's a cart already in my workshop. So this is a TB cart, okay, and it's the Monster chassis. So it's a cadet class go-kart. Now for those of you who understand or are familiar with cadet class go-karts, is that they use 60cc two-stroke engines, but what I've fitted on is a four-stroke engine Honda GX200. Now the reason why I'm doing that is, first of all, two-stroke engines are much more complicated to tune and also set up, and it's more expensive, whereas four-stroke engines very cheap. So it's on the flip side. Now it's a lot easier to work with. But because this chassis was meant for a two-stroke engine, a lot of things were set up a bit differently, so I had to do some machining and modification just to make it work with a four-stroke engine. So because this chassis was meant for two-stroke engines, so you can see on the rear axle, okay, this is where the rear sprocket was supposed to go for the two-stroke engine, and because four-stroke is on the other side, I had to redo the, not redo, but like create a new sort of key entry on the rear axle just to fit the rear sprocket for the four-stroke engine. What I've set up is 10 teeth in the front and 40 on the back. Okay, this is supposed to be a very sort of high-speed setup, but with sort of less torque. Now the driver that owns this cart is quite a light driver, so I'm not going to worry too much about the torque, but this is the first time this cart was set up like this, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how the cart performs at the track to see if I need to change the gear ratio. Something else that I changed for this particular engine is this is a CNC flywheel. Okay, I've strengthened the valve heads springs so it can withstand a much higher RPM. The reason why I'm expecting a much higher RPM is that the carburetor, okay, this particular setup, because it's such a small cart, it is unable to fit the stock carburetor. So I need to change to a much more higher performance carburetor, and because of that, a lot more air goes into the air fuel mixture, so it's gonna be a lot crazier in terms of horsepower. So stock GX200, the four-stroke engine I'm using for this particular cart, its official documentation says that it has about 6.5 horsepower. So with all the modifications that I'm going to do to this engine, I'm expecting at least 2 horsepower to 2.5, hopefully increase. The carburetor that I'm going to be using is sort of like a performance carburetor for karts as well. So I'm sure that it can do 2 horsepower to 2.5, maybe even 3. So that will put it very close to the two-stroke engine that it's supposed to fit onto this particular chassis, which is the I think it was the IME two-stroke, which is 60cc. It's also supposed to rate at around 10 horsepower. Now what I'm going to do in the future, okay, with this particular engine, it's going to be like a first sort of test engine, just to see how this modification to a four-stroke engine works with this chassis. But it's a very simple modification, so I don't think it'll be a problem. So what I'm going to do is change to a slightly higher capacity motor. Now that is, I forgot the name of the motor, but this is a 200cc motor. The one that I want to use in the future is going to be 225. So it's got slightly bigger cylinder. Some of the components are also strengthened to handle the higher capacity, and also the revs and stuff like that. And for some people that I've seen who have used that as a modification basis, they were able to push the engine to about 8,500 RPM, whereas the Honda, I'm expecting the highest it can go is around 6,500 RPM. So at 8,500 RPM, and with this kind of sort of gear ratio, theoretically speaking, this cart can go up to I think 85 to 90 kilometers per hour. But this gear ratio is a very low torque sort of gear ratio, so it will have problem exiting the corners. But the track I'm taking it to, it's going to be a very high speed track, so the amount of time that it's going to spend at the lower RPM range is very little. So I don't think it would be much of a problem, but we'll have to see, because for this particular sprocket setup, you can see that it's a split sprocket. So this is actually the only one available. They only have 4 rear sprocket, and that's very unfortunate because this kind of sprocket is going to be very good for swapping out on the fly. Okay, so I don't have to take out the entire rear axle to change the gear ratio at the track. But unfortunately, this is the only one that they have, so I'm gonna have to order like custom-made ones in the future if I, take this car to like shorter tracks or tracks with more corners and stuff. Anyway, so this is the car that I'm working on. It looks quite cool, nice neon green, but it's not an OTK chassis, so it's a lot of components is harder to find. Anyway guys, so this is still work in progress. A lot of components are still on the way, and I'll be posting a follow-up video when I complete the cart and also taking it to the track. If you guys enjoyed it or you got some comments or recommendations, leave it in the comments. And if you enjoy this kind of content, you can consider subscribing. And yeah, you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.